Are we alive? Friday. Are you here? Am I here? Oh, is it ever good to see you? How are you doing? I would love to hear it, or at least type it. Hello to all of you here in the chat. Hello to you out there hanging out. It is time to kick up your feet, to just kick off the shoes of the week and lay back, hang out, and rock out with us tonight. We have such a great show planned for you this evening. All you have to do is be entertained. So just shrug off any responsibilities you might have, unless you're driving at this very moment in time, and then maybe pull over. But we're here for you. And so I would like to say a hearty hello to Jenny Stone. Welcome in. Hopefully, I'm 5 by 5 and the mic is on and everything. And Betty is here tonight. Good to see you. And Patricia's Creations is here. Allison Prairie Girl Rocks is here tonight, brandishing her wrench. Everybody give the wrenches a hearty clap and applause because those guys rock, and we'll get into stuff that they can do here in a moment. Brian, good to see you. Greetings and Steinkerns to you, sir. I'm glad that you found your straw. That was important. I was so befuddled before, but I understand now. So I have been enlightened. Blind Squirrel Rocks is here. Blind Squirrel Rocks wrote me the absolute sweetest comment about the show we did on Wednesday. Thank you so much, sir. That absolutely made my day, week, month. Thank you. As if there weren't enough thank yous going on already in that direction. We've got the cheers emoticon going strong. We got Stein Kearns galore. So let us all do this real quick right here at the top of the show. We've got Tsunami going on here by our friend over there over the coast range. Thank you, Mr. Hoyer, for this. Cheers to you and your health and your loved ones. I'd like to start off the show tonight just taking a moment, everybody. Gather up all the good vibes that you've got and send them to Lisa. Please do that for me right now. Prayers, whatever it is that you might have, just have it just effervesce up out of you and send it her way. She needs it, guys. So please do that for me. And it looks like Lava Bison is here and Rufotris is here. Good to see you. And it looks like you just got home. So you slid on into home base and you're here with us. Very nice. Ma is here as well. Fantastic. Thank you for coming. And we have a lesbi rocking here as well with the hearty cheers. I love it. We've got cheers, cheers, cheers all over the place. We've got Mr. Turtle Montana in the house. Oh, and look at that. It's kind of like the Beetlejuice thing, right? That's my mug. That's right. It is both yours and mine. What a great birthday present that was. Thank you so much. I love it so much. And it looks like we have more on the way, guys. And so if you need yourself a tsunami, or I think, remind me what, were you doing Stewart or something like that, Kirk? I would love to know. And so thank you, Allison. We need some real good power, really good energy from the rock community going her way right now. And I think I did say hello to Jenny. I'm gonna start doubling down on folks and then probably forgetting other folks. Rocky Mountain Bears here, and y'all, we're having a great little discussion ahead of time. So Skull and Steinkerns to you as well. and everybody who was hanging out before the show even got started. That kind of reception totally pumps me up. It's like, woohoo, there's a gang here already. And Tomcats, Josh, I saw, like, now I can't say it without the Z's, even if I want to. Tomcat was here saying hello along with Patricia's Creations, or rather Sonia, but I'm sure Patricia was there too. And y'all were just, it was a wonderful welcome in when I was getting ready for the podcast tonight. We've got Reptile Z here in the house, and so I'm gonna drink to that. Keep my whistle wet this evening. And so we had a fun-filled week. My mom is still in town. We got to go down on the beach and do a little bit of rock hounding. We got to go to one of the coolest rock shops that exists, I believe, on the coast. And I hadn't visited it yet. And so I want to give propers to, and this is going to sound awfully familiar to some of us, Sticks Stones. But wait, there's more. So it's not Sticks and Stones of the Theo variety that we're familiar with already. We've got Sticks, Stones, and Bones. And this is a wonderful rock shop over in Yachats. So if you are on the Oregon coast and you find yourself on the central coast down in Yachats, and that's how it's said, by the way, those of you who might be uninitiated on some of the strange names of things that we have here on the coast, definitely duck in and say hi to Mark, who is a very, very good, warm receptionist and owner of the store. And so we had a really, really good experience over there. And I want to make sure that all y'all, if you need your rock shop needs fulfilled and you're on the coast, go down and check them out. Margaret's here. Good to see you, Margaret. And everybody's getting all settled in. And we've got something about duct tape, the handyman secret weapon. Yep. Oh, I might need to watch some Red Green tonight. All right. So we're talking about some media. And oh, Margaret's in the know. They have some specimens that would require a forklift to take home. I mean, if you want to go to a rock shop where you can put your entire head inside, one of their geodes or something like that, then this is the place. They've got these huge specimens out in front, and then even more inside that just is a wonderful, like, it's a truffle of what you would see at a big gem and jewelry show. They do an awesome job of just having a plethora of everything, a little something for everybody. And so I'm unaffiliated, but I had such a good time going. And usually we are buzzing so fast down the coast that I know it was there, but I hadn't been in because we were always on our way someplace else. And so it was really cool to cool my jets and actually pop in and find out what an awesome store that is. And so at any rate, we got Julie joining us. And I just want to, right now, right here at the top of the show, you guys know that Caleb is coming on, who is Freeform Lapidary, and he's going to be talking about his experiences running a rock show, which is a total, you could imagine that would be a mind blow, and then also being a vendor at the same time. So there's a lot there, and we were culminating some good questions from those of you over on the Discord. You're welcome to ask questions in the comments, or rather in the comments too, if you're viewing this afterwards, that we can answer for you, but also over in the chat, wherever that is. And if you have a question that you want us to see, apart from all of the banter going back and forth, which of course, please tangent until the cows come home. put it in all capital letters, kind of like the Nick Zentner style, and that way we'll be more likely to see it. And if you see your question go drifting all the way down, then maybe resubmit the question in all caps again, just so that we make sure that we've got it. And we'll try to get to everything this evening. But first, I would like for anybody who is brandishing a wrench to help anybody else who is having a video or live either premiere this weekend, or if you're doing a live stream, then by all means, let's go ahead and share those um, the shareable links in the chat if you would like to, or anytime during the podcast tonight. If you've got something coming up that you would like to share with everybody, then make sure that you tug the shirt tail of one of the mods, and they can help you get a link up there. And during this past week, we had some really, really cool videos come out. For instance, we have Betty, who is over there going at Oceanside through Tunnel Beach, and Luke Up Close, which I'm not sure if I'm getting that channel name right. It might be Up Close with Luke or something like that. He put out a new video that is microscope oriented, Prairie Girl Rocks, with her balloon that she fetched off the prairie, and some really cool microscoping over there in Montana. And then, of course, Arizona Rockhound Expeditions, not only finding the straw, but also a really good video premiere there. We've got Kurt with Rockhound Adventures on the train tracks. Go check that out. J&V Rockhounding, of course. We had a new one from Oak Rocks. Fire Agate Mark actually has been churning out some material, so go check that out, especially those of you who are freshly into some fire agate. We've had some just go around the community recently, and people are just getting their Nova points and getting into it, so go check that out and more. It's that and more. So if you've got announcements, put them in the chat right now, and we can all benefit from that. We've got the Who is Kyle just entered the building. Howdy to you. And of course, Kyle's got live streams going on all weekend long, I believe. And then he's got Amy on Tuesday nights, which is a new thing. Super cool to watch. And so definitely check that out. So that's kind of what's going on with the news. Yes, exactly. Who is this Kyle? And he is making an announcement right here. Saturday will be a shorter live. And so those of you who have been doing some cool live streams lately, like Cheryl and Rufo, whom also had a cool live stream recently, and I think that we have more coming down the pike, then maybe we can fill in the blanks on that. And so thank you so much, Allison. She's quick draw McGraw with the links. I really appreciate that. The why is Kyle is a good question. Yes, we shall all be asking that of ourselves, Ma. And let's see, we've got Rufo's link up there. Fantastic. Great. You guys rock. All right. So I think that that's the top of our program, the fourth dimension, Kyle, right? So we're going to bring Jahik, Caleb, Freeform Lapidary on. But first, I want you guys all ruminating. And as we bring on Freeform Lapidary here, I want you to think about what makes a great gem show great to you. What is it that you look forward to when you're going? Because, even for a director like Caleb, and for vendors such as myself and Ma and several other people that I know vend at shows occasionally or lots, what makes a great gem show for you? And what do you look forward to seeing? Okay, so think on that and share your answers. And we're going to bring this guy up here on the stage. How you doing tonight, Caleb?
Pretty good. How about you?
Really good, thanks. And it's so good to have you back. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, happy to be here.
Okay, and you're all in one piece after your
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. This last month's been pretty busy prepping for the show and then doing everything that goes along with that. And then afterward, my work life got pretty crazy this past week, and I'm still holding it together.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it looked like quite the together show. I've got that slideshow I'll bring back up. And first, I would like to say thank you, Rob, and hello to you. I saw you were here early as well. So thanks for coming and meeting new people to explore with and talk about their finds is what you look forward to. Thank you for sharing that. That is definitely one of the draws is
Yeah.
the Nerd Fest.
Pretty much. I love talking with vendors, and other people at the shows.
Right? All the like-minded people, it is a good thing. And just taking a quick glance to make sure that before we go on that we haven't missed another good answer. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things I like best. I'll go ahead and turn that answer to you before we get started on your personal experiences. What makes a gem show great to you, Caleb?
Well, variety I think is pretty key there, and we'll get even to more into even more of that when we talk about how the show goes together. But um, being able to go to each booth and see something that's a little bit different or entirely different is just great. It keeps it fresh everywhere you go, everywhere you look, something new, something to see, and yeah, that's pretty much it for that.
Nice. And Kyle is saying, I like seeing people's reactions to rocks in person during shows. That's my
That's
favorite
very
part.
good.
Yeah. I would have to share that as far as I always felt like it wasn't fair as the gallery owner that I got to see everybody's reactions to people's artworks and, to the jewelry and the rocks that were there. It was so gratifying to see
Hmm.
what joy and bewilderment. There's probably some bewilderness as well, at, at least in between my ears. But yeah, that sort of thing is definitely infectious about shows for sure. And it looks like the Rick the Rock is here and Wisconsin Rock Stalker welcome in as well. And so, first, before we get into the questions from the Discordians and here in the comments, I would love to ask you, like, what got you into being the guy that was going to be throwing this show together?
Well, I'm just part of the machine that puts this show together. So I'm the senior director for my local club, and so we as a board put on the show, and then so we make all the primary decisions about everything from venue to the rental items that we might need to getting the vendors in there, setting up the spaces, how the show how we want, and what elements we're gonna have return, go away. And yeah, it's a lot to kind of to tackle, but I'm just like I said, I'm just a cog in that. And so my main duty there is, apart from making the decisions beforehand, is uh getting the floor plan set up. Like I'm pretty much in charge of that, and so I have to get with. Oh, we have um, two people that are actual show coordinators. One of them handles kind of more with the vendors, and the other one handles more with like the venue and some of the other elements, getting that all together. And so the rest of the board just feeds into them and keeps them with what they need. And so it really is a group effort. There's no one person that I know of that can really tackle all of those. That would eat up a lot of time and brain power. So yeah, it's definitely a group effort. It's not just me.
See how I had like given you all of the credit though? Like
Yeah,
you're pretty much a champion from, where all of us are sitting, playing a role in doing that kind of direction is a huge deal. And
yeah.
so Yeah. And I get it that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people that have talents in one admin area or another muscle area that help the entire thing come together, which is beautiful that you have a group that'll do that.
Right.
And we have Allison. I want to see Space Rocks at shows. The good ones, not just the wholesale campos, but that's a tall order, I know. So, all y'all out there that want to do some Space Rock dealing, like, we'd love to see you at the shows. And I like seeing, or I like showing everyone gem shows, but local is the same. Gem dealers sometimes bland. All right. And so, yeah, we also, and I'll speak for myself, but I'm betting that the we is a bigger group. We love it when folks like yourself go to the gem shows that we can't go to. I think I became a fan of Lapidary Dave because he would be going to like the Holodome in Tucson when I couldn't go. And I'd just be like, I want to go. Well, at least I can see it.
Right.
So thank you for those of you who like to document them because it's still fixes the Jones, if you
And
will.
it's really good to give you a view into the show. Maybe, that's a long ways away. Is it worth going? Like that's a pretty big if, especially if you're traveling across states to go to shows like some people do. And so having that like year before, watch one of these guys who recorded it and see like, oh, that actually looks pretty like a pretty nice show. It's nice and big or open or has the elements I like to look at. So that's wonderful for learning. So if you're curious about some of the shows, there's obviously you're not going to see videos on every show, but definitely do a quick search and see if anyone's put any content out. Might give you an idea, see if it's worth it.
That's a great tip. Wonderful tip. And Rob is sharing, I don't care for the people that sell the stuff they bought in mass and don't even bother to pull out the purchase tags off the little white boxes. And so I get it. I get it that
Yeah.
there's a lot of different styles of vending out there and a lot of different ways that people spend their energy setting up their booths, if you will. That's a good observation. And one of the reasons actually why I stopped going to the big Tucson show, because boy, after seeing miles and miles and miles of stuff that, just kind of got mass produced out there,
Right.
sometimes it kind of, you're searching for the soul in it a
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of in line with that a little bit. I have a hard time vending at those people as well and going through them because it's the same thing you can get any given day of the week. That's why usually the purchases I do make usually come from the more unique vendors. But that's not to say that you can't still find, little gems inside those. So, still take a look. Sometimes I find really good. One of my favorite things is there's a guy I know, he's a friend who does a lot of that kind of thing, and because he buys so many like flames and towers and all these oddball things to shows for to sell at shows, I sometimes get them like really nice material cheaper than what I would pay for it rough. And it's just like a flame or something. I'm like, sure, I'll just tear that thing up with the saw and just have really nice stuff. So you know, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
all bad, but I get it.
yeah, it's already windowed for you, so you know what the material is looking like. So yeah, I hear that. We've got Cynthia has joined us. Good evening, Ontario Rockhound. Good to see you, Aiden, and Brenda Bloom and Doug McCowan. Oh my gosh, you guys all just heard it on in here, and the Soul Adventurers. Good to see you all. We're talking about the gem show that Caleb had the grace to be part of putting on. And so I would love to hear kind of at the top. Ma asked a question that was, what was the most challenging aspect? And I think that that's kind of a good opener, like and we would love to hear what it kind of took for you to get that rolling.
Well, on the show side of things, the most challenging aspect is literally getting all the pieces in a line. There's a lot of elements, especially at our show. We have things that the club puts on at the show, as well as getting all the vendors in there, getting speakers lined up as part of a thing we've started to go back to. Everything just has to work out, and in general it does. There might be a slight delay or a little hiccup, but it's nothing that can't be overcome. And as far as me being a vendor, I think the most challenging part is getting to a point where I feel like I have prepared enough, and I definitely was not there. So that I was just like, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Like the night before, the morning of, I was just like, my booth wasn't still set up, and I felt like I didn't have enough stuff, which I totally did. But it's just like you have to try to overcome that little hurdle that you've placed on yourself, and I think that's it for me.
Yeah. It's never enough. It's never enough. No matter how
Mhm.
much you get prepared ahead of time, I think that that's probably the Achilles heel to most creators. Be it, gems and jewelry and art and, you name it, it always feels like you could just have done a little bit more. And
Right.
there's always a few pieces that are works in progress that are sitting in the studio that didn't get to come to the dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us. I'm going to show some of those pictures from the beginning, and you want to talk us through a little bit about, what it was to do what we get to see in these pictures.
Sure.
All right, and so whoa, we're way ahead of where these slideshows love me so much. So tell us about what's going on here.
All right, so this is like the setup of the floor plan for all the benders are going to be. I do like a map out. We've been kind of using the same template year after year and just changing little elements here and there. So it's pretty straightforward now that I've got the initial work done because I've been doing this for a few years. Um, and so this is the gymnasium or the basketball court. The main part of our show is in here, and then there's some more stuff that goes on outside. And this is Friday morning. So our show is Saturday, Sunday. This will be early Friday morning. Um, they let us in the building at 8:30. Vendors are allowed to start showing up at like 10 o'clock. And so we have a very small window to get in the door and start getting the booth set up.
Oh
And
wow.
a big challenge with that can be for us, but it's been good, but it's always for a minute, it's kind of like, is this going to work out? Is these are all rental tables. And so we're reliant on a rental company to show up morning of in a proper amount of time because they don't say like we'll be there at 8:30 or whatever. They say "Ooh, you're on the list of deliveries for the day and we'll put priority for you to be first," but it's not a guarantee. You don't know sometimes till like the day before if you're going to be the first one on the delivery list. But so far they've been really good. It's a great company that we've been using and we'll keep using them. And so yeah, it's like get these in the door and start setting them up. So I had a group of guys, luckily, to come in and volunteer, and me and them just dragging these tables, setting them up, and getting them into position. And so this was, I think, at this point, this was where I started already expanding all the tables. Normally, like I kind of rough out just squares, and then I start separating as vendors. So you see those U shapes there, right in front and center. Those three tables on each side of that square will be a vendor. So I give them space to get in between and have some room to breathe in there if we can, and it just keeps everybody happy.
So, one of the things that I'm noticing about this particular layout is that your back is only to another vendor, so there's somewhat of a security feature to the way that you have this set up, like, you
Yes.
know yeah, like a circle of elephants, if you will, it's protected. Is this something that you do deliberately?
Yes. It seems to keep everybody happy. They have a little space. A lot of vendors like to have a little work table behind them for, their stuff. And so we try to do that. We do give people some freedom in this. Like I think not the very first U that you see, but the one next to it, that vendor actually ended up coming in and changing how they wanted it. So they slid that front table to the back and then had like another little mini table so people could actually go all the way around. Don't really like that, but I think if I remember correctly, the other vendor too also kind of boxed themselves a little bit with their back tables, so it like worked out where it's not as I always tell the vendors when they come in, I was like, I don't mind if you change it a little bit, just don't encroach out too much farther because we like to have our spacings nice and manageable. I mean, if you go by code, you can get away with like slim spacings between for like walkways and stuff, but we like to keep it a little more open and breathable in there. So it's always, we kind of work with them.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, do you have like kind of abstract understanding of how many people may or may not come? And is that part of the way that you lay it out so that you don't have like big blood clots of people, trying to move through and it's just kind of too jumbled?
So before the show, we only had the previous 2 years of information to go off of for admissions. Um, but that being said, just like visually after watching, being a part of the show these past few years, yeah, it definitely helps to have room. We probably have more room in between than we need, but it's not really a bad thing to have more space there. We could be greedy and clump it up a little bit and get like a couple more vendors in, but really it's not necessary. And the vendors are all super happy with everything, and then so are the people who come in. So no use really messing with it too much. We do play a
Yeah.
little bit with some of like the edge tables around the outside of the gym. We will mess with those a little bit depending on who we're putting in there. But for the most part, the center floor plan is the floor plan.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like from what I could tell that the um that looks like a really good way to put it together and be able to functionally get people to look at everything. One of the biggest complaints that I've ever heard when I go to shows is I got a bad spot,
Yeah.
you know? And so how do you deal with that?
Um, Luckily, the way we have the floor plan set up and the because like we line the walls with stuff with like either straight rows of tables with vendors on them, or one side has our club's display boxes that people have submitted. One wall is like our is a completely club wall where we have our um, junior program there, which you see behind here, those blue cloths in the back. That whole wall will be like our junior stuff, merchandise, and then we have a guy who's a very knowledgeable rock identifier, call him the rock doc, so he sets up there. And then what it does is it kind of keeps somebody from getting like shoved around in a corner. So imagine one of those U shapes, um, kind of like in a corner a little bit, and one of the tables is like, there's a few feet between that table and the wall. Like that's like a dead zone. And so we
Yeah.
don't really have much of that here. Everyone, it's set up, everyone can kind of move around freely. And that we kind of keep it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Kyle makes a great point here. No such thing as a bad spot. There's always a way to grab people's attention, think outside the box.
Yep.
And yeah, I kind of always felt that way. And we can all imagine Kyle dancing in a robe and fluffy slippers with sunglasses on top of his table, trying to get everybody over to his, corner table if that was the case for him being at a show. But I guess like the next question that I would love to ask you, since we are kind of looking at you setting your table up here in this particular picture, is y- and I bet you a lot of people out there getting ready to maybe do a show for the first time. How do you put together a good presentation?
That's a great question. I was not, this is not at all how I kind of envisioned it before it was coming, when it was coming together beforehand. I knew I bought some display items for both tables here, and there were different styles of displaying things. But I didn't really, know how it was going to look until I started messing with it. So I just started with one thing and another, and then I just started kind of tweaking things a little bit as I went. And when I felt like I didn't have enough, it actually turned out to be kind of perfect, which we'll see in one of the later pictures here, where there's space between things, and you can have little elements in those spaces without it being a wall to wall, down the table blur of stuff. And I think that kind of helps because it lets you breathe a little bit as you're looking around. It's because, when you're staring, when you go to something like this, imagine looking at like 1,000 cabs laid out on a table. It's just kind of a whole visual impact that you got going on there. And so having some room there helps, I think.
Oh my gosh. I know that everybody who's been to a gem show lately, and especially if you've been to a really big one like Quartzsite or Tucson or Denver or any of those big ones, you close your eyes and you just see stones. Like for days, you're
Right.
trying to go to sleep at night and you're just like, I am so shell shocked from my eyes seeing so much. So I love that you are thinking of that knowledge that people are going to be seeing a gazillion cabs and thinking about resting places or something that's like maybe a little different and an anomaly on the table that changes it up for you.
Right.
That's pretty cool. And actually that is making me think of another thing. Let's see. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Where are we going? Nope, that's not it either. I'm trying to find our um there. So, and there's a picture of some of Ma's stuff. Um Actually, Patrick asked a question about, is it frustrating if there's lots of vendors with the same stuff at the show? And this is kind of also on the tail end of a question that Nomad Kai asked about, is it better to have like be focused on one type of item, or is a diversity better? And so that like they kind of are the same question in different ways for not only your table but for the entire show. So on your table, what would you say would be true? Is it better to have like a focus of a kind of thing, or did you think diversity was better?
The diversity definitely helped. Like you can see here, this whole table I put Muzz stuff on. It's all jewelry oriented. It's all finished pieces of jewelry, from earrings to bracelets to necklaces, all there. On my side, it was mostly just cabs, a few miscellaneous pieces of jewelry and stuff that I had picked up over the years and things like that. And you know, it created enough that like there was enough of a boundary here, like this was one focus, this was another, and both things brought people in. So there was people who came in just wanting to look at the cabs, which is great. Some people wanting to purchase, perfect. And then people who are looking at the fine jewelry that Melissa did, that was a whole nother thing. So it's both work.
I love it. And then, on the same vein, and then there's some comments that make me like also want to ask another thing. But for the entire show, was that a consideration as far as what vendors wanted to come? Were you looking for a diversity, or did you find yourself having like a glut on certain things? How did that work?
All right, so I can feed into this a little bit from two different shows. I think like last year's to this year's, and then also an element from another show. So we've had certain vendors make comments about like you had too many people doing this thing, and I couldn't get enough sales from that thing. Well, the biggest argument that I can put against that, and I know it's a little bit different, but it's like the Big Sur Jade Festival or the Monterey Jade Festival. Okay, they're all selling jade of different kinds and different products and stuff. Now, granted, that draws in the jade people, but also draws in a lot of other people. And so competing with other people there, it's kind of like if your stuff is unique enough, it will get the attention. And I'll speak to that more on my experience at this show. But you know, yeah, it's just like we have jewelry vendors. We have multiple jewelers that come in and do their own stuff. Some people sell other people's stuff. My friends who I got in there at the show this year, all silver and gold jewelry and whatnot, they did terrific this show. They had never done it before. They had a fantastic time, and there was other people selling jewelry there, but their jewelry is really unique. So, and then as far as like selling stuff, I think diversity is key. I've done other shows where I brought rough slabs, finished, pendants that I've made, and cabs and stuff, and I've sold all of it, and it gets people in. And one aspect is like kind of mixing things in a little bit on your display. So if you have like your trays of cabs up front, you can have like rough pieces and slabs, especially if it's of the material that you're showcasing. Like I had one of those trays full of dino bone. Wouldn't hurt to have a few dino bone slabs there that I'm willing to part with, or not even, just to show what it looks like, or a chunk of uncut dino bone, just to show like what it can look like before and after. But all those things, feed into getting people in and looking at your stuff. And so, yeah, don't, you can be as refined as you want. Like I said, my friends who did just jewelry, they did fine, but all the stones were different and unique. So that adds a little bit to that. But, you can be as focused or as diverse as you want. It's all on presentation and the quality of what you have, and just selling yourself and your products. It's all doable. You can do whatever you want. Just see what works. Try things. I've done a few shows and I've just been tweaking things slightly, and it works.
Awesome. And Mr. Turtle Montana, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and ring the bell for you. Instead of a kissing booth, what about a rock licking booth? And I think I saw in the comments no. the, the licking part, Brian will tell you about like Jardia and whatnot. And so, but I like the, thinking outside the box, looking at potential different angles at things. Thank you so much, Mr. Turtle Montana, for that. Really appreciate it. And talking about the diversity, I did see a comment go by earlier that having a different variety of price points too. Would
Yes.
you address that?
Yes, absolutely. It can be tough if somebody comes in, or you come into a booth and everything's, over $50. And that'll be limiting to some people, and even kids too. And because we get a lot of kids drawn in because of our kids program, and we advertise in a lot of places, so we have kids events at our show and things like that. So yeah, definitely having some lower price things that are just movers. You don't even worry about making that much, but it's something that somebody can have an introduction into your booth, get something, feel happy about it, you know and that's a thing that the people who sell the mass produced stuff kind of solve that problem for themselves too, because they usually have things very, very cheap, and yeah, have price points all over. A friend of mine who's a GIA certified gemologist, um, she brings some incredibly expensive faceted gemstones to the shows, and she also brings some, really affordable stuff, less than $25 even for some things. And you never know, she sold an insanely high value gem this show, which was just out of nowhere. And it's good to have some of those items because there are people looking for it, but it's good to have the little nickel and dimers too.
Yeah, when we were at the rock shop there in Yachats, which they're talking about some more, awesome. There were a bunch of kids. It was a day that tourists are driving down the 101, and they each had $5. And so what can I buy? And I'm sure that you've got a bunch of those. And so it's super cool, that they could get like a little agate ring, or they could get like some little bag of tumbled rocks or something.
Hmm.
And so I love that. And then of course giving the sky's the limit to anybody who really wants to blow the whole bank wide open. And we've got Corey Merrill. Welcome in. Good to see you. A fresh name here. Hello. I have an odd question and understand no 100% answer can be given. What stone is metallic silver and very light with a triangular habit and sheet-like cleavage planes? So we've got a mineralogy question. Do you have any idea?
Not offhand, no.
Somewhat metallic and triangular. I'm wondering if we've got some kind of like an iron situation, like looking like maybe the nub of a cube of pyrite or marcasite happening. But maybe somebody in the chat would know better. So take it away if you can help Corey out. Thank you for coming and hanging out and asking a question. And Allison's got this question that I'm glad that you're reminding us of,
Oh,
because we were
yes.
having a little bit of a guffaw on the gravel pit and we really needed an explanation. So can you tell us what that was about?
Yes. And okay, so when I alluded to earlier about there being some outdoor vendors and things, um, we have a small section outside where we put some vendors and then a few club items. So just real quick, the list of club items that we do, like I said, we have a what is it, a raffle section. We have merch, we have the rock dock, we have the kids booth. Then we have a whole display wall. We have a cave of mystery, which is like a UV pop-up tent with UV minerals inside, or fluorescent minerals inside, I mean. And then when you go outside, the first thing you run into is a geode cracker. So we have cracking mechanism, and then we buy geodes of different types for that. So that's put on by the club, and then right next to or then on the other side of that, we'll have the gravel pit. Now, the gravel pit is essentially donations to the club that we pick up from old estates or people just contacting us saying like, hey, we have a bunch of rock, do you guys want to come get it? Or just a number of things like that that we acquire from club members, just moving off material they don't want anymore. And so that all goes into our storage, and that's what makes up the gravel pit. So we'll haul all that stuff off that we want to use for this thing that's put aside for it in buckets and crates and trays and all this stuff. And you'll find everything in there. And you'll find fossils, you'll find petrified woods, you'll find slabs, you'll find rough slabs, sometimes cabs, mineral specimens, all that kind of stuff you'll find out there. And it's just an accumulation of a bunch of stuff that we've collected over the years. And so luckily it refreshes somewhat regularly where it doesn't dwindle down too far. It's quite a bit of material, but that's what it is. And so basically you go in there and you get some of the best deals you'll ever get on material. You won't be paying, you know, like market prices for anything. It's all cheaper, and you can make offers for larger amounts of things, if not, or not, and even just to the individual, but it's very cheap.
Awesome. All right, so we now know what the heck that was all about. Very, very cool.
It's
Um,
it's
Go
a
ahead.
big draw. It's a big draw for everybody. Like even the members, the people setting up, we're just like itching for it to be all laid out so we can look at it. I stopped setting up my booth at one point because I had to run out there once it was set up and just go dig around for a little while.
Yeah, raise your hand if you don't need any more rocks, but you're always looking for bargain rocks.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much. I kept it within reason this time. I got one small little bucket full of stuff, and that was good. But I could have grabbed so much more, but
Right.
I don't need it.
I don't need it. I don't need it. Where have we heard that before? Uh, Thank you, Soul. I would rather kiss a rock than kiss a stranger, and I don't like rocks. All right, awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. You're welcome to keep the questions coming. Thank you so much, Soul, for that. And the dogs love that. That particular. I was asking that Ma question, and she had asked what the most challenging thing was, but also what the best aspect of the show was for you. What would you say that was for you?
For me, this year is gonna come on from the vendor side of things, and that was people reacting to the cabs that I had cut and brought to the show. It's always pleasant to hear, the compliments and everything like that. And some of the biggest ones that aren't a verbal compliment are just people coming back. And so it's the return customers. And this year I had people who came and shopped from me early in the day and then came rushing back a little bit later and bought more stuff because they had went and walked the whole show after getting some stuff, and they were like, and they said basically that I had like the best cabs at the show. um
Oh,
and or just like, that comes down to material cuts, just the quality of them overall. And they were super stoked, so they came back specifically to get more, a couple of up and coming silversmiths. So you know that's
awesome.
that's great when there was other vendors with cabs.
That is the testimony of they vote with their money, you know?
Right.
And so congratulations on that. And actually Patrick had asked, is there a rough number of attendees that turn like will make the entire show turn a profit or not? Did you guys have it free to get in?
No, we charge admissions. It's $5 per adult. Children and active service military get in free. um But yeah, it is kind of a numbers game. We do our best to try to advertise as much as possible to get people in there. And then for some reason, every year, even though we shift the weekend a little bit around depending on where Easter lands and some of the other little holidays and things, um, we somehow managed to land on the citywide yard sale for the town that we have it in,
Oh,
which
that
is
is
just
awesome. Yeah.
it just happens to work out that way, and that's a great mover of people. Just gets people out and about. And if your plan for the day is to, spend the day yard sailing, well, you don't really have any specific place you have to be. So it might drive some people in there for that till they're like, oh, what's the gem show? Let's check it out. But yeah, we run yard signs, we run online advertisements. So we in history in the past we have done like local like what's happening type magazines and things like that. And so we just try different things and see what the best response is. But yeah, it's really get people in there. That equates to more sales for everybody, so we try to do our due diligence. I forget, I didn't get a chance at our little wrap up to hear the exact numbers of people, but um, something like a couple thousand people, I think, came in, or somewhere around there, give or take a little bit, on one day, and then the other day it was a little different than that. But
Awesome.
from what I heard from the vendors I talked to, they all had really good shows. So, and that's really what you want. Um, and Yeah, I mean, it's a good size show, especially if there's even bigger shows in our area, but it's not Tucson, it's not Quartzsite, it's nowhere near that. So
But that's what's beautiful about it is that, kind of to that question about if there's too many redundant vendors or whatever, you get like the truffle of, okay, here are the craftspeople, here are the people that have, the towers and stuff like that. And it's just, a nice smattering of everything. Do you think that there was a good representation of all the different options that could be at a gem show, or are there holes
yeah.
that you'd like to see filled next time?
um I think the big, like, we did have some fossils. It would be nice to have a more dedicated fossil person, which we've had in the past. They just didn't make it into this show for some reason this year. But no, we have everything from cabs to mineral specimens to the polished this and that's, towers, whatever, to faceted stones to big flat polished, wood specimens, and just all kinds of cool stuff. And that's really where, and then jewelers, different kinds of jewelers, like the more artisan and then a little bit of fine craft, and it's a pretty good mix this year that we had. And previous years we've had dealers selling a lot of jade, which you'll get because Big Sur is so close to us. And even though we had some of that this year, we had a one, two, I think like two or three vendors selling Big Sur jade and other jades like that. They still had a really good show. So, you just make your stuff stand out. The more unique it is, the better.
And so Corey was asking, where was this show? And
Oh,
so you want to let us know where that was?
Yeah, so it was in Atascadero, California, which is on the Central Coast. It's our area is our county is in between LA and San Francisco, more or less.
It's such a big spread. But
Yeah,
yes.
there's a lot of space between there, but we're literally fairly close to being right in the center of both of those. So
Gotcha. And so, as we were talking about before, you were talking about giving the eye a break, and I think that some of these slides that are coming up here are what you were talking about, right? Did you
yeah,
wanna point that out?
yeah. So I got these different these felt line trays, which are terrific for displaying cabs. I was thinking about going the Riker method, and I might in the future, but this is just so nice because they're nice collected, and they work really well, and they're open so people can just get right in there. They don't have to fiddle with stuff. Um, but what I was doing here is the mixed cabochon tray there on the left. I like to have a little space between each cab, as you can see. And then as things started to sell, I started to funnel things down again from the more cluttered tray up top there. And
Excellent. Yeah.
so it's there so people can still look at some of it. I just didn't have enough trays to really do a full, but it worked out well enough. And it's just a good way to represent things. Like I think the tray on the right there was my Dino Bone tray, so that's all Dino Bone. I had enough in there to just kind of dedicate, and then separate things out by color and type a little bit there.
That's
But
quite the muscle flex actually of Dynabone.
I put a lot of emphasis, or a lot of effort into cutting Dynabone cabs right before the show started. And this thing can be kind of like a little lesson. You can put you Dynabone's obviously very desirable. And I had a lot of different types showcased here, from like white cell to gray cell to kind of orangish and reds, and then kind of like a wine color, and then different uh, variations of the cell structure. And I put all this time and effort into cutting them. I sold, I think, one person bought a couple Dynabone cabs the whole show. So
Oh my gosh.
you sometimes you put a lot of effort into something and it just
Oh,
doesn't pan out, but
man.
that's
Isn't that the
okay.
truth? I'll bet you a bunch of people just had a total "I feel ya" moment because you think this is gonna be the hot thing, and I know that Theo's talked to me about this before too. Just cranking out on a certain thing that he thought was just gonna be the flame of the whole show, and you get like some couple of that, but like some other things going off. And
Right.
honestly, do you think that there's any predicting of that, or is that so random that you just have to sit back and watch it unfurl?
I think you can play into your location a bit. You can, if I had put more, I had a lot of people requesting local stones,
Yeah.
and I didn't have as much local stuff on hand this time around. And so, in the future, definitely we'll have some local stuff on hand. Um, and I have jewelers asking for that as well, specifically for
Yes.
local materials. And so, you definitely play your area. If you're in the Southwest, you can definitely get away with selling a lot of the phosphates and Southwest style jewelry and things. Those are going to be a lot hotter of a sell than some of the oddball agates and things. But you never know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's difficult to know, and yet I definitely from experience do commiserate with the folks asking for local and wanting, if they're not local, they're looking for a memento. If they are local, they're looking for something local to work with. And so
Right.
you have to kind of figure out how that works into your body of work for sure. And
And I'll
go
give a
ahead.
little tip to you guys. If you're going to start vending or thinking about it or whatever, take notes on the feedback, and or even if it's not feedback, you just hear people talking while they're in your space, seeing like, oh, they're, where the local stuff at. Make a note of that, bring it to the next show. If you have return customers, think about like, oh, I love the turquoise that you do, remember that the next show produce more of that, and then that'll actually help your overall sales. Because doing this, even just on the second year, I had a number of return customers. On the third year, I had even more. And so, pay attention to those things because those will keep you going much more than just the oddball sale usually.
Heck yeah. If they like, yeah, I got this from you last time and I'm here again. And so that's great. That's a wonderful tip. And Wisconsin rock stalkers, what's hot is always the question, Karen. And it did seem, as we attended the gem shows, and Tucson is a great example. You can see through the show what's hot.
Right.
Like, what happened in the market that all of a sudden we are seeing so much of this? And, everybody's
There's
clamoring for this. Yeah.
There's a good example of that from like Quartzsite in Tucson this year, which was Wingate agate, which isn't a new agate. It's been around for
Right?
a very long time, but it got hot again. Somebody, I think the guy who was, getting known for selling it must have come into a whole bunch of it. And it went from being unavailable to available. So it got super hot, and
Yeah.
I do have a little bit and I thought about cutting some of that, but I don't know if the show that I did was the best place to try to market that, especially for like the price point. It would take the specialty person to come along and be like, "Oh," because I didn't see a single piece of it throughout the entire show. But
Wow.
it could have been something, it could have been nothing, but you know, definitely see the trends
I have a
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have a question for you about, every now and again when you are at a show and you're talking to a vendor, they've got all the stuff out, and you ask the right formula of questions, and the person goes, "Hold on, I got this thing in the
Right.
back." Or, do you do that? Because
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the big driver of that conversation is enthusiasm and interest and just someone that you can share something with that is probably going to appreciate the oddball thing you have or the rare thing or and you didn't put it out,
Yeah.
and yeah, definitely I've talked with people and they go, hold on, look at this, and then sometimes sales come that way and it's like, okay,
Oh,
cool.
most certainly. Yeah, or you need to exchange cards. Like, you might not have it at the show, but like, yeah, be in touch with me because I we are on the same page. And so I always I think that going back to that first question of what you look forward to at a show, it's that connection. That's my
Right.
favorite. When you meet like the miner or the person that is a collector or whatever, and you guys go, "Oh, you're into that? I'm into that too. You have that? I would love to see
Mhm.
that. You really are interested in that?" Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you just get so pumped on something. So, yeah, that is definitely a cool experience. And did you have some of those for this show?
Yeah, yeah, there was one guy who I had kind of already known he was going to bring some of this stuff, had some faceted stones and things that he had picked up. And I started bugging him about it a little bit. And then he started pulling out the trays from down below,
Yeah.
and that's a thing you can do too, is like, I remember saying I felt like I didn't have enough. Well, I did, but I also had even more that I could have put out that I didn't. And it was like some things that I didn't work, some cabs that I didn't cut, or just some stuff like that, some rough, and that I usually hold on to unless somebody asks. And, somebody asked, like, I had a little bit of jade out and I had some really nice jade cabs that I didn't cut that were in a tub below, and this gal came up, started asking me about jade and asking if I had some nicer qualities, and I said, "Yeah." I was like, "I didn't cut these." Always be full disclosure with people. Don't lie; it doesn't help anything. Don't be dishonest. And I'm just like, I didn't cut these, but you could take a look at them. They could have scratches, they could have imperfections, they might not be perfectly shaped, whatever, but you can take a look. And that person bought a whole bunch of them from me, so you
Yeah.
know have some of those things just on hold. It's something you kind of want to part with, kind of don't. If it doesn't fit with the vibe that you have going on your setup, you can put it away and just bring it out later if somebody asks or something.
I think that this ethic might have come from my mom. I'm pretty sure that it did. She's upstairs listening. Bring more than you put out. Bring more than you think you can, in art language that was more than you can hang, but that you have it. And even the fact that you take the time to show somebody that's not like that the thing isn't out, but let me offer to show you this extra thing makes that person feel special,
Right.
as far as so this actually plays into a question that I have about your sales um artistry.
Okay.
So what do you feel like, how important do you feel that the sales artistry is, the presentation plus the way that you are, equals the fact that you sell? And this is going towards those of you that are getting ready to vend.
Yeah, definitely there's some stuff there. So one thing like I like to do is even though you saw all the trays there, some of the trays had things that were not crafted by me. So one is just transparency and being like, hey, these ones here over on the end, these are not mine. And I'll sell them for whatever. I'm not really worried about it, but it's just like being transparent. The other thing is like interacting with the people walking up. The vendor who just sits in the back like this in his chair while you're sitting there, perusing, he's just watching you. It can one make the shopper feel a little uncomfortable, but
Fair.
also there's just, conversation is good. It's the interaction between two people, and that can lead to like building relationships with people, and it just feeds the sales as well because. So like what I do is like when people come up and they start looking, I just kind of keep an eye without like staring at what they're doing. And if they ask, at some point after a little bit, if they're around enough, I'll be like, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then if they do, I go in and then start talking about all kinds of stuff. But I always go up and say like, oh, look at these or these or these or hey, I have more of these over in this tray. Let's put them together. Sometimes I'll give people a tray to like, here, do you want to? Put a few things together because I've got jewelers come in that, it's just all that little stuff like that, the interaction with people, just talking with them, even just asking them how their day is going, how the show's going. Well, that actually does a dual purpose for me being on the board is show feedback. How are you liking the show? What did you get? What have you found? What do you, just all that kind of stuff, just conversation. I mean, it keeps it fluid, keeps it flowing. It's comfortable, and you can tell if somebody doesn't want to talk or whatever, wants to be kind of left. Oh, it's okay. That's all right. But,
Oh yeah.
just don't just, just interact. And if, don't just sit there. It's a little weird.
Yeah. At the gem show in Tucson, a lot of the vending is done in hotel rooms, right? And so you walk into a room and you're like in somebody's hotel room and it's already weird,
Right.
because especially if you're the only one in there shopping, all eyes are on you. And are you a whale? Or are you just gonna buy one piece? Or are you even gonna buy anything? And we're trying to eat our lunch. And it can be so weird. And so I think that that's really good advice to just disarm the situation if you can, whatever that might be.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody back there, I think it was Jenny, was talking about having muffins. Like she feels okay if there's muffins, but whatever the thing is that helps you to kind of break the ice, I think that is the big deal. And sometimes, for me, a lot of times I won't ask questions unless I'm really feeling it. And so if there aren't prices on things or if there aren't tags that tell you kind of a little bit about what's going on, sometimes that's a turnoff to me. What are your turnoffs?
Um, oof, that's a good question. I feel like when I'm at shows, I'm pretty patient. So like, sometimes having to wait a little bit, it doesn't really bother me. But I guess being like full on ignored, but it can be hard, especially like if you're the sole vendor, you have to kind of check your expectations sometimes when there's a bunch of people at a single vendor booth, but I don't know. I'm pretty easygoing with shows. I weave in, I weave out, I sometimes just stop by for a second and gander, and sometimes I take deeper dives. I don't know. I guess just maybe just rude vendors sometimes. Sometimes people are just not the most pleasant to deal with, and it just is what it is. But I don't get hung up on it too much. I'm pretty easygoing there.
Yeah. I think that the most fun, another thing that is a favorite thing for me going to shows is talking to people that actually go access the minerals, and so they're the
Yeah.
miners, or they're the people that are fossil hunting, and a person with a good story is going to they will sell me a rock.
Right.
They'll keep me at their ding table for long enough, or in their hotel room, or whatever it is, until I can't help it.
Right.
I I'm just so giddy over whatever story, and how cool that thing is that, I might sacrifice my breakfast and coffee the next morning to buy the thing. You know?
Right.
Mom and I used to starve in Tucson.
I'll go even as far like one of the interactions I had with a guy who he's a friend of mine, local jeweler who comes back and buys from me. So it's not really an issue buying if him buying from me or not. He will, but sometimes I'll be like, hey, did you see these? And I'll pull out, like, for example, I did this past weekend with some red horn coral cabs that I cut, and sometimes red horn coral isn't all red. It's got white. Some of the cells go white and has white streaks going through it and kind of quartzy areas. And, you know, um, you can try to cut it for the full pattern of the coral, or if you want, like I did with these specific ones, is I felt like the white parts of it and clear parts of it weren't doing enough to help the cab. So I cut down everything but the red and just cut little red cabs so they're like off center of the thing and whatever. And just kind of talking about that kind of thing. Just the process of why I chose to do something or highlight something a certain way is enough to get people interested in that kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that is exactly what is compelling for somebody, is just the story behind things. Even if you have provenance,
Hmm.
let me tell you, this is where this is from, and I'm not the minor, but this is what that person's experience bringing this out is, or
Right.
like any. So I guess that the kernel of wisdom there is just having maybe a sufficient knowledge of what it is that you are selling, to impart on, because I know that that actually does make me trust a vendor more if I
Mm.
ask questions and they know answers at all. You're like, okay,
Well, I have
you
a
know
lot
what
of
you got.
respect on the opposite end of that. I have a lot of respect for people who say I don't know also.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Don't lie
Instead
to
of
me. Don't
feeding me
make
some
up.
story.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, I have heard some stories too. You're like, okay. Not so much.
Right.
And so Ma actually asked a pretty cool question here. What did you think, or what didn't you think of to bring that you found out that you needed at the show? Because I guess that would maybe help people if there was anything, and you can say you were perfect, and that's okay too.
No, far from that, but definitely it was the biggest one, and I've already kind of gone into that, is the local stone one.
Yeah.
People want to see the local jaspers, local church, local agates. We have our area has quite a bit of stuff from fossils to thunder eggs to agates to jaspers, and our formations here are pretty plentiful. And so definitely having the local aspect would have been a big one for the show that I could have capitalized on. So I'll fix that in the future. Um, and maybe, and then it's just certain things maybe having more of, like turquoise is always, even over here, is still just a great seller. And I did have, you could see in one of the photos, I did have a little bit of turquoise, but
Yeah, I was
more.
drooling on that. Like,
Yeah.
if I were to steal one thing off of your table, I would have closed that, clipped it shut and ran. For
Yep.
sure.
I think
So do you
even having
go
some
ahead.
more polished specimens would have been a good one. I have been doing more of that recently, just taking a chunk of rock that it's kind of maybe too small to want to slab it up, or even if I took it to the trim saw, it would make just little cab size slabs, which isn't really a bad thing. But sometimes people like to have something a little shiny and bigger that they can hold that isn't some big polished chunk of something. And so I have
Yeah.
been doing a lot of that recently with like some poppy jaspers and agates and things like that. So I did plan on bringing some. Time just kind of got away from me a little bit. I had a pretty busy month before the show, but in the future I'll probably have some of those scattered in between the trays and things like that. So as it evolves, there'll be more.
Yes. Yeah, so do you have a notebook? Are you like writing yourself a letter to Caleb in the future that next year you're gonna be wondering like, what was it that I thought that I needed that I don't remember now?
I'm ac- I'm actually pretty good about handling that mentally, but
Right on.
it, keep a notebook. Just be smarter than me because I might forget one of the things.
I would be totally needing to do that, like, or tattoo it on my forearm like in the movie Memento.
I guess what helps,
Um,
it's like I've already thought of the things that I want to do. It's just having them ready there. So it's
yeah.
like it's just reinforcing what I already want to do.
Right. Yeah. One of my questions that I had written down earlier was, what would you do differently next time? And it does sound like you kind of have a ready list of some of those things, like the local stones and stuff. Do you usually send people off with like just a little bag, or do you, have what are your preparations for like, hey, you've bought this wonderful thing from me. How do you send them away?
Well, for this show, and actually for previous shows too, I buy a grip of those little plastic baggies to put cabs in and things like that. I don't
Mhm.
have like a, you know, specialty made bag or something nice to send people away with. Um, which, I might change in the future. It does seem like a nice thing to provide to somebody. And they're not terribly expensive just to make the experience a little smoother and better. But nobody seemed to really mind because I would even ask a lot of people like, "Hey, do you want a little bag to put these in, or this one?" No, I got it. I got a bag right here. Okay, fine, that's cool. But yeah, that's another element that just elevates you a little bit. I feel like, and there's a whole number of those little things that you can do to make it better, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the details when Ma was asking that question about what do you wish you had that, like that's one of the things that I've found in years past that when I was doing shows, I thought, okay, presentation for the buy is a big deal for me. But then, once sold, sometimes I felt like, oh, maybe this needs to be a little bit more romantic too. you know
Mm.
and so making sure that they leave with a card in their hand, or you get a sticker or
Right.
something memorable,
And I did
because
have
yeah.
those this year. This is the first year I've had like a business type card and some stickers available. And so I was handing those out to a lot of people. And then to select people, I was like actually putting like my phone number onto so they can, like locals I know that just didn't have a way to get a hold of me yet,
Right, so
stuff
your
like that.
phone wasn't blowing up. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, originally it's like, oh, do I put my phone number on the card? And then I was like, absolutely no, I don't, because unless I had like a dedicated business line or something like that, that would be a different story. But I didn't even put my email, I don't think, on the business card either, even though that is like a good place for that kind of stuff to go. I just didn't want that much engagement yet because I don't want to, I don't know. It's just how I felt
No.
about it at the time.
I love that you're kind of going over this point right now, actually, because I think a lot of people that are listening, we're listening for a bunch of different reasons. Either you're a rock fan and you go by, or two, you might be an actual generator of some rock craft, and so you might be considering doing a vend at a rock show at some point, or you might actually be part of a club that like Montana was just talking about. Turtle Montana was is kind of in the same shoes as you, and I think that it's important to like give the purchaser something that will remind them that they got it from you, because I can't tell you how many times I got home from Tucson, and before I lived in Tucson, I'd be all the way back in California, and I would have purchased something that I freaking loved and wanted more of. And all I had was a generic from the grocery store receipt. Like the books that you can buy that don't even, they have nothing but like here's a receipt. And I had no way to get in touch with them or
Mhm.
anything. One of the things that my brother told me to do on my most recent cards that I just printed was just put a QR code for my website or a QR code to link you to, even if it's your Instagram or something like that,
Right.
people can PM you.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
I did
yeah,
tell
that's
that
so
to a number of
easy.
people. I had my
Yeah.
Instagram on there, and I was just like, feel free to reach out to me on there. Follow me up, see if I have anything new from time to time. Because I try to, as much as I want to be like, you know, full blown cabber kind of, set reseller and stuff. I kind of like to manage the load that's coming my way, where it's like people wanting to do commissions. I'm like on like I'll do a small commission, a few pieces or something specific, but nothing like large. And that maybe that works for other people, won't work for me. I work full time plus over sometimes. I don't have the time to, and then trying to manage your personal life and stuff. It's like can be a little much at times. So I try to just manage the influx of requests and stuff like that. And so I didn't want like full blown. So just to like certain people, I was like, hey, hit me up, see if I have something new. But I'm not just going to be like dropping everything I have on, you know, certain people for certain things. So I don't
So
know.
Wisconsin would like 1,000 cabs by tomorrow.
You want them fully polished?
Yeah, he's like, I actually might have that. Be careful what you wish for, Wisconsin. Yeah, so I think that those are good points to kind of consider. Like you want to emerge at the right rate for yourself,
Right.
right? Yeah,
And if you can manage it, go for it. Take it all on. I tried
yeah.
doing that a couple times already with a couple jewelers, and it just didn't really pan out as well as expected.
Oh, this is funny. Soul is saying, I always look for a new bag to buy when going to the shows. That's pretty interesting. I have a purse that should like probably they wouldn't let me walk onto the airplane with it. It would have to be a checkable piece of luggage. I have
Mm,
such a large purse, and that's why, it's kind of like a farmer's market purse,
right.
Yeah, like I can put so much stuff in it. And so what would you recommend as far as, as a vendor or as a director of a show, what would you recommend that a person coming to a show have? Like, would you recommend them bringing something that would be an easy bag, or what kind of gear do you think is good to come to a show with?
Okay, yeah. If you don't mind, be careful with the backpack thing and the bag thing a little bit. At least find out what they're going to allow, because obviously, big bag, big item can go inside and nobody notices. Um, but find if you can find out the restrictions there, go ahead. But yeah, definitely something to carry stuff around with. I would suggest if your goal is to maybe get some crystals and things, bring a little bit of extra padding, like some bubble wrap or the thin styrofoam wrap, just like a little bit extra, because like a good dealer will provide you with that. But if you buy several pieces, sometimes it can be a bit much in like a little carry on or a little carrying bag or something.
Rocky Mountain Bear nails it with
Money.
money. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was gonna allude to that too. Cash. Sometimes you get a better cash price. That's a pretty big one. So, I had a lot of people come through just wanting to use card or pay with like Venmo or something like that. And that's all fine, but you know, you get better deals for cash. It's just easy, it's simple.
Big time. Yep.
A lot of vendors will do that.
Yeah. And I think as far as my experiences go, I always like to have a jeweler's loop in my purse.
Oh yeah. That's a good one. UV lights, I usually bring them, or I bring a really high power. I have a couple really high powered flashlights, which can be really good as well for checking
Yeah,
clarity of things.
the gemfish,
The
like
gemfish, yep.
yeah, having a little torch or something like that is really, really because I just had the experience over at the rock shop that I went to in Yachats. The I had my loop with me, but the fella offered me his torch. And I was like, you know what? I should have brought my own torch because
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing I was looking at some gem rough and so you can be a really good shopper coming equipped because maybe the vendor doesn't have more than one, torch to pass out to folks wanting to look. And that could be the difference between you finding something really amazing or missing out on it because you just didn't have the right tool at your own disposal. So there's things that you can do for a good experience too. I like the UV suggestion as well.
And I think the last one I'd say, baby, is bring your manners. It can go a long
Yeah,
way with
right.
it's both ways with the vendors and with people coming in. It's both ways. Being polite goes a long way. Sometimes, and it can go as far as like asking to pick things up is a pretty big one,
Hmm.
especially with some nice mineral specimens and or expensive rough and stuff. Just be like, hey, can I? Or cabs too. I had people come up. I had a number of people come up, be like, "Can I pick these up?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely, you can. Get in there." You know, and bring
Yeah.
them up to the lights and stuff. I had really nice adjustable lights that we could either bring down over the trays or bring them up to and stuff like that. But yes, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things I would love like if you guys want to share that are in the chat and then something I kind of alluded to it earlier, but when you walk up to a person's table, what is going to allure you and what's going to turn you off? And I would love to hear your thought about it, Caleb. But I also, and obviously that comes into how you set up your table too. But also, I'd love to hear from the chat if you guys can offer, when you are going up to a table, you know the feeling. Don't tell me you don't know the feeling when you are at a gem show and maybe you have like 2 hours to go through the whole gem show and it's big. There's going to be tables that you just walk right by. And then
Hmm.
there's other tables that will kind of speak to you and magnetize you. I would love to hear what that is and what's your like thing that draws you in, Caleb.
Um, I'm pretty good at like kind of quick scanning at first and just kind of seeing if there's. I kind of when I'm buying now, I'm kind of looking for like the oddball, rare or uncommon, just whatever, just something interesting. And so I'll do like a quick glance, kind of see what's going on here, and then I'll maybe come back later and kind of deep dive in a little bit. But someone who gets me in is just a good presentation, and then just having something I actually want to look at. And I know that can be almost sound a little mean, but um, it just is what it is. The thing that interests you is going to pull you in. And so, like one guy at our show this year, it's kind of hard to miss, but he has these big standing board displays with these gigantic wood slabs, petrified wood slabs that are flat polished, and they
Mm.
just suck you right in because the size of them. And then once you get in there, you might think, oh man, I'm sure those are expensive shit. I don't want to go over there and look and see the price tag because I do that
Right.
sometimes. And then I walked over there and checked him out, and they, he had some like massive slabs that were only like $100 that are like an inch thick, petrified wood slabs and stuff like that. And that's just like a stupid deal,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of little things. Some I skim over, like it's pretty easy to see like the people just doing the resale thing with all the common flames and whatever, and I'll skip over those. But usually at some point, once I've gone looking around, I might jump in there and see if there's like a nice quality of something I can cut up.
Right. Yeah. I like this. If I go to a dark table that looks like a dumpster behind Dollar Tree, I will pass. Yeah. So I heard that. And a lot of people are, there's the eye contact thing that I put up, and then Ma is saying, "I'd say price is everything. If there's no price, I assume I can't afford it," which, yeah, there's like, if you have to ask, you probably can't afford it. I do that too. I'm bad. Like, you'll lose me if I can't see at least, I understand if not everything is priced, but throw me a bone. Like, at least I know your table isn't completely out of my range. If I can see a few prices, turn it over. Like, you might it's okay if you make me pick up the thing. Like, if I have to turn it over and I see the price on the back of a cab or something like that. Or, like, I just love it when you are looking at a tray and this tray is $10 for anything in it, and that tray is $20 for anything in it, and then I can start like shopping, like, okay,
Right.
you know what? I want 3 of these. And then when the seller asks me like, "Hey, would you like a tray?" And I say, "Yeah, actually, I might actually have more things than a few things to put in my hand. Good on ya. Give me a tray." Oh, and you know what? If you buy like those 5 things, then, it comes down by 10% or like all of that. You got me. You just hooked me. Put a tray in my hand and tell me that like I'm getting a discount. In Tucson, it's the Keystone. Like, "Oh
Right.
yeah, and that's Keystone," and you're like, "Oh," and then you put like more, in.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think that there's things that at least those are things that'll draw me in. And again,
I
it's definitely interaction.
I definitely like being able to see it, and I, for one, was terrible about this at this show. I had none of my stuff visually priced on my side of of my booth. Um, and part of that was just a time thing, and part of it is I kind of just don't do that very often. And but I do try to tell people when they ask, or if people are kind of like picking out some things or looking at a certain tray or whatever, I'll be like, these might go as little as $8 for like a cab up to, $30. It just depends.
Yep.
And I was like, but if you pick out a selection, I always, whenever I do say that line, I pretty much always follow it with but if you pick out a selection of them, I'll give you a better price. And that's
Well,
just
yeah, if you've got the time to be able to talk to the customers that are approaching you, then it's like having the price tags. So
right.
there's not a bad there. If somebody's coming up and they're kind of like peeking in, and you go, "Hey, yeah, those are turquoise, and that this selection ranges from this," and you pick up one and go, like, for instance, this one would probably be around $8 or whatever. Then you've broken the ice with the client. They feel more comfortable looking because they kind of already know, like, okay, this is what I'm getting myself into. That's my big problem. What am I getting myself into? Like,
Right.
am I talking about spending hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars with you? Or am I, in a range that's less than that? Or, and it depends on, I've had days where I'm voracious and, I want to spend, like multi figures. And then there's other days where you're being a little bit more conservative. And I think that most courteous people might even be a little bit too passive. If they're being conservative on their pocketbook that day, then, so as long as you've got the verbal, I think that's good.
Right. Yeah, and I always try to work with people. I mean, I always joke with people that I'm like the the best person at talking myself out of money, because like when I start chatting with people and they start picking up a handful of cabs, I'm just like seeing negatives going across my eyes, just like, oh,
Yep.
okay, okay, okay. You know, I'll do this. Like, this would what it normally be, and then I'll do this. And people love it. They're like, "Oh, great."
I'd be back. Yeah, it's, because like, so maybe one cab really, gets your fancy. Like, I need this. and then the seller's saying like, and these are this good price or whatever. A lot of times it takes you, as a seller, sometimes it takes you to point things out to people. Don't
Right.
feel too like you, it doesn't feel pushy to somebody buying if you just go, today the fire agate over here is actually a really good price, and I'd just like to let you know that these are
Right.
all between $5 and $10 or something like that. That's not pushy sales,
Right.
unless you're a jerk about it. It's okay. And then that can be an icebreaker. Oh, okay, well, I didn't notice a price over here. How much is your soda light or lapis, or whatever it is that you're actually shopping for? Maybe that wasn't it. But once I get like what you were just saying, that couple of cabs in my hand, and then if they are saying like, oh yeah, so if you do that, then like you get another cab free, or I'm giving you this much off or something like that. A lot of times I like to tell them to pick another thing out. You
Oh
got
yeah, I
that.
do that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got that in your hand. Pick another thing out,
Right.
and that's going to be a gift for you. And
Yep.
so, like
They're all
something like
great
that,
tools for
I'm
picking
coming
up
back.
return customers. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. People
Yeah.
love it.
So, I don't know. That's those are we're both customers and salespeople. Most of us, actually. I know I recognize enough of you in the chat and everything that I know that a lot of you guys work both sides of it, and so you kind of have these things figured out. You know how you want to be treated.
Right.
Um, yeah, observing things when you do go to the gem shows helps a lot. What's your biggest takeaway, would you say, as far as, the biggest whys do you think you got this time around?
I think, well, so this was my first show selling as a sole vendor, like having my own
Mm.
full booth. I have worked other shows, and I would partner up with a friend of mine, the GIA gemologist that I had mentioned earlier. I was partnering up with her, which she would give me, like half of a table or something, and then I would just sell some stuff off of that. And so I think it's just like the overall experience of being by my not by myself, because like my wife came and helped me a lot with the show, so I could get in and out of my booth, or just with processing money and all kinds of stuff. Um, she was a tremendous help, but it's just the overall experience of being on my own, was just everything that goes with that. To the feeling of like either not being prepared in some ways, being prepared in others, thinking about things going forward, what to do. It was all just like a big learning curve, and uh, I think I'll be a lot better prepared for next time. Um, but yeah, I think just that whole experience, it was a fun experience. It was a little overwhelming at some points, but just everything that goes with doing that this year has just been awesome. So
So, Soul has a question here. Caleb, how do you feel about people recording while they're visiting your booth?
I don't know yet, because I have yet to have that happen. I didn't see anybody recording at this show. This isn't one of the big ones that would attract the YouTubers, really. I thought about doing it. I didn't. Partially because I was a vendor, so it made it incredibly difficult to get out of my booth for any period of time. Because like we do have like a couple hours before the show opens. I could have went and talked to people then. There's almost no time after the show closes, because of the venue that we have. When the right about the time the show ends, everybody has to exit the building, so I can't like hang around too much and talk with people in that way. So
Yeah.
um I don't know if I would mind it, really. uh it seems like it would be fun. It's just a conversation, if it was like an active conversation between me and the person, like Dave does, for example. He goes to some shows, talks with people about their cabs, their materials, how they cut things. I do that with people anyway. So if someone's, just recording while they're doing it, probably not too big a deal. But haven't
Yeah.
experienced it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that that was a great question, and good night, Rick. And I would say that the most important thing, I know that some vendors get dodgy because if they do see, or if they do have marked prices, they might feel not okay about you videoing it because there might be a an expectation when they go to the next show. Hey, I saw your vending, just a month ago and this was this price. So I think that the biggest deal about showing people stuff at shows is to ask them first.
Yes.
As a YouTube channel, please have the courtesy of approaching that vendor first. Ask them if it's okay to film, and then you can back up and walk up on it again. Nobody's going to call you out on recreating the situation, but it's really a huge courtesy to make sure that it's okay, for you to be there doing that.
Yep. And yeah, that goes for taking pictures too. Like
Yeah.
one of our show coordinators, he does that anyway, just to have like recaps for the show. He takes pictures and some videos, so that's like not an issue there. Like I don't even really notice him when he's doing it. But I did have one person come up at some point and be like, "Can I take a picture of some of your like one of your trays of cabs?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like what? There's no prices, there's no anything. I don't really care
Yeah.
anyway. It's just like, yeah, go ahead. Just for future use, whatever. Not really a big deal, but they did ask, which was really nice. But so there's that.
Yeah, I like ask first. Like whatever it is that you want to do, ask the person, and that's great to drum up the conversation. And so hopefully as a vendor you're available for people. Try to make yourself as available as possible. Kyle put something up earlier about try to stay off your phone, like be
Right.
there for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And Rocky Mountain Bear is asking this interesting question. Do you guys hire security? And without giving away too much, OPSEC, are there a lot of security measures that you have to worry about?
Yeah. Luckily, the place is buttoned up pretty well. The actual building that we lease, it's a city-owned building. um and I believe it has cameras and things like that, and it's like not too much of a worry. It's like right in the city center, and it's not in some obscure place, so the building itself we don't worry too much about. But we do have overnight security that we hire because we have outside vendors and things like that, and so we have to hire security for that. So
Yeah.
we go through a um, local security firm, get somebody on site, pay them throughout the entire night to watch everything until the next day. Um, it's a requirement. People can't. You just can't leave that stuff out, especially when you have
Yeah.
vendors. It just makes sense. And so yeah,
Yeah.
we do hire security for the things we need to. Um, and yeah,
Awesome. Great answer. And is it often expensive to set up a small table or booth? And does it have to be 100% mineral related? I have a few Australian friends who do some mining of sapphire and opal, as well as some collectible coins. So he's asking as far as like becoming a vendor. And so I would say that, you can say specifically for your show and then maybe a broader suggestion if you want.
I mean, depending on how scaled up you want it to be, the sky's the limit on what you can spend on a booth. But
Yeah.
I did this for what I considered a very reasonable amount of money. The tables I did not buy because I rent the like we have the board or the club provides tables and then the vendors pay for them. Um, as far as that goes, I did have to buy pretty much all, or most of my display items, like the tablecloths, the lights, the little trays, and the little stands for Melissa's stuff, and or we both pitched in on some of those things and whatever. But pretty much everything else, like, and then like in the future, I do want to get some more display type items, but I did all that for like less than a couple $100. I think the lights were the most expensive thing.
And you make it back to some
Yes. Oh,
degree,
yeah. Yeah. One
especially if
show.
you're yeah, right. One show will take care of it, and then you have them for all the next shows, and so it's just about planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Everything's paid for already. My one show
Awesome.
like this, it's all paid for. So in the future, I can expand on that, which I plan to. I plan on, going upwards with some higher displays
Yes.
for some of the items. I did notice, like for some of the earrings that were there, I had them displayed out on the table, which was nice, and their little jars and stuff. But then everybody was like bent over
Oh
looking at
yeah.
the top of the table instead of just being able to look, And so I'm gonna add some elements to that side of things for the future. Um, so yeah, there's always little things you can improve on. You can keep spending money, but just for like a very basic setup, it's you don't have to get too crazy with it. Tablecloths, some trays, some display items, and you're pretty much good to go to start.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you'll learn what you need for your items. Like if you're selling opals, you're gonna want some really nice lights. The lights I brought were not powerful enough to really be doing the opal game. We had an Ethiopian dealer there who had lights, like big, nice LED lights that were about this far apart all the way around his
Yeah.
booth, and
Yeah.
they were blasting bright light, and his
Yeah. It
opals were
makes a
just terrific.
huge
Right,
difference. Yeah.
right. I don't need that. I probably could have used a little bit better lighting, but our facility, as you can see in some of those photos, was pretty well lit, so it wasn't too big an issue. But yeah, just know what you're doing, or what you're trying to sell, and accommodate for those things.
Sure. And yeah, after you sort of crack the ice on your first show, you'll start understanding like okay, here's that list that you keep in your mind or put in a notebook that like this is what I'm going to do for the next one. And Kyle was saying that he's not worried about people recording because he's not adjusting prices and it's advertising. And so that
Right.
is something to think of, if you are a vendor and you're trying to decide whether or not you want somebody to record your table, like think about it as far as like, do you want to be on a video like Lapidary Dave's? Probably. Like how many people are going to see that and want to like now buy from you?
Yeah, and
So,
that gives you a chance to promote where you're going to be. If
yeah,
you're going to some of the big shows, or you are primarily in a certain area of the United States, that's an opportunity for you to shout yourself out. People can find you.
big time. And so, you will notice that like a lot of vendors, of course, the ones that he's friends with are like, heck yeah, come on over and film the whole thing and let me show you all that. Like I'm bringing out the boxes from below and all of this stuff so that you can show it off. Um and Mr. Turtle Montana is saying, can you really call it work if your job is to walk around a rock show and look at all of the pretties? Now let's talk about how much work it is to have a table.
It's a lot. It's much more taxing than you think it is. you
So
know,
exhausting.
as much as important as it is to be, like I said earlier, about talking with people and having interactions with people, every one of those is just a little taxing on you. And then by the time your show is over, you're just like, what the hell was this day? Even though you had fun and stuff, but you're
Yeah.
like peopled out almost sometimes. And
Oh, completely
you
wiped
know
out. Yeah.
your legs are maybe shot because you were literally standing for 8 hours straight, pretty
Uh-huh.
much, or running around. Because, like, being part of the thing, I still have some club/show responsibilities that I try to tend to. Or if I need to just take a break, my break's really just running around and asking if everybody's doing okay. Oh,
Yeah,
as a
being
security guard.
being a security guard would be awesome at the show. I mean, if like of all the things that you could be a guard for, being a rock show guard would be pretty fun. But yeah, it like I think that it's fair to bring up the point of that it's not just show up and start selling stuff. There is such an enormous amount of put it together. I was telling Ma, like I always used to put my table when I would be doing shows, and they weren't specifically rock shows. This was like art stuff before I went on to having my own gallery. I would put the show and the display together ahead of time, like a dry run, like in my garage or whatever, in a room. So I could see what everything was going to look like and even sometimes take pictures so that the day that I walked in and I had to put it together, I was fast. Because
Right.
for one thing, that, I think some places will give you a certain amount of time. Sometimes it's the morning of, and
Right.
you've got to like blast it out before people start showing up, or you've got a couple hours before the venue closes the night before. But most of the time you're on a timeline. So, you're moving a bunch of equipment and lights and plugging stuff in and making sure everything's put up right. And, you're exhausted from having done all the work in the first place. And then you're, setting it all up. And then when the thing opens, you were talking about all the socializing, and you're leaving energy all the way along.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
me and my wife were both pretty dead by the time it was all said and done. And a big one too, I was gonna say, is like the white noise, like the being in
Oh
that
yeah.
gym and having hundreds of people in there. It's just like it's an impact on your ears that kind of drowns out after a while, but then at some point you're like, you get into quiet and you're like, holy crap, that was loud. Like that was like a lot of sensory, overload in some ways. And yeah, still
I
fun.
think, yeah, shell shocked is a really good word for, like,
Yeah.
especially if you've done an entire weekend event, you are just trashed at the end. When you're packing everything up and, with your last muscles loading stuff, like you don't even unload the car. You're just like, I'm done. I'm done. So, Soul is asking, how do you protect yourself from shoplifters?
For me, it's mostly just being present.
Yeah.
So, not to say I don't ever sit down, but when somebody comes up to the booth, if I am sitting down, I instantly stand up if I'm not already standing. I stand up and I just stand right where I am pretty much, unless, or it's just kind of, and I start at that point, start reading the situation, reading what the person's doing, what they're looking at, maybe talking with them or whatever. And then I just stay, if there's someone on the left side of the booth, I just kind of hang out center to the left side a little bit, and I just wait and or talk or do whatever. But it's just being present and paying attention without like staring at them, you know?
Yeah, there is such a gentle nuance in between being there for somebody in a, capacity way and not lurching on them.
Right.
Like, so learning that proximity is really important, and that's actually another reason why having, four eyes or maybe even six eyes behind your counter is really nice. If you can buy somebody lunch and have them hang out with you for a while or the whole time, if it's a
Right.
significant other that you can just owe really big, or a family member that wouldn't mind hanging out, having
Right.
the extra eyes is just it's a kind of preemptive thing.
It's like a
Like,
deterrent and things
it's a
like that. Having
deterrent.
presence
Yeah.
there, it's.
Yeah, too many eyes will, somebody will move on to maybe another hit, another mark.
And sometimes it's hard. We have certain vendors who basically have like 360 booths and they have tier displays and they can't see everything. There's, probably some loss. And it's
Yeah.
something that's really hard to avoid. It just kind of is what it is. I think if you set yourself up that with the exposure at that level, you know, it's just something maybe you take and you hope the volume, cuts out that loss. But you'd
It's
also don't have expensive things that are away where you can't see them also, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's really good. I remember getting set up in the gallery. I realized, in real time that somebody was getting my attention so somebody else could do some lifting. And
Right.
so again, just being hyper aware, which is part of why you're so exhausted at the end, is that, you are on, like, I'm riding a motorcycle at 100 miles per hour hyper awareness so that my stuff doesn't leak out the door. And so, you might have somebody that is engaging you to take stuff out of a case, and they're trying it on and they're absorbing your attention while somebody else is, sticking a bunch of stuff in their pockets. And so again, having people, I'm sorry, but I like smile, you're on camera, you
Mm-hmm.
know regardless of you if you have a camera or not.
And
Like that works.
one more thing I'd kind of like to add to that, and this kind of goes in hand with presence. And I meant to say this earlier, and the conversation kind of moved past it. But along with the board that puts on the show, we also have a really good club of members that volunteer. So all of the club booth stuff, the break room with like snacks and things like that, admissions, um, everything like that, and then just people to walk around and be present at the show. That part goes in line with the conversation we just had. We have volunteers who just roam around and watch and just kind of keep an eye on things, and they check on the vendors to give them breaks or try to solve fill any gaps where there's lacking something. And so without them, we really couldn't do the show at all. So like our club comes together really well and volunteers like for a ton of that. But yeah, with the presence part, then just having them walk around to keep an eye on things. I think we avoided one situation that was brought up at our little recap meeting about something along shoplifting. And so, having
Awesome.
people there is big. So that's
Yeah.
one aspect of it. You need the club. You need volunteers. They
Yeah. It's awesome that you guys have that resource.
Yes. Luckily, our club is quite large in terms of rock club sizes, as far as I know. Looking at some of the like national data of clubs, their numbers and stuff that are through the bigger club associations, and yeah, they make themselves available that weekend, and this includes the whole show. Build up, like the all the preparations the day of, like I was talking about with the tables and stuff, but also the tear down as well, because you can't the board would be pretty shorthanded if everybody just like dipped out when the show was over, because then you have several hours of breakdown after. And
Yeah.
so luckily we have a great team of people that usually volunteer, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know, that you've got private people that are, kind of like your private shoppers that are walking around maintaining security. That is awesome. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, like know that's out there, and hopefully that's a resource for you if you're going to go vend someplace. And Mr. Turtle Montana is saying, sometimes I feel like they think I'm a thief due to being constantly watched. Is there something I can do as a shopper to kind of tell the vendor I'm not going to steal anything? What is your take on that, Caleb?
Yeah, you should, as soon as you walk up to the booth, you should just blurt out that I'm not going to steal anything, and that'll be probably the best thing you could do.
Look, I'm not stealing anything. Here, hold this $100 for me, while I look, I
Right,
don't know. Yeah. It seems like it can be difficult to disarm some people at some vendors are just salty. And so, or gritty, they're minors or something. It's okay. I never take that personally.
right,
Knowing how hard it is to be a vendor, just you can always walk up and go, "Can I get you a cup of coffee?
right.
Can I Would you like an ice cream? You seem you seem a little grumpy. What can I do for you?"
Right.
And so, like, that could be a way. And I liked this that Kyle suggested live stream of the overview of the booth. That's a good one, actually. Like
I
if
think
you're streaming live, so if you want to steal something from me, everybody in the community is gonna see it.
I believe Julie from Femme Mécanique has done that in the
Yeah,
past, where she's gone live on YouTube with her whole booth there and stuff.
yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
It's a great idea. Why not? And that is a security feature because, like, Smile, you're on camera is for real at that point,
Right.
and it's entertainment. It's getting you watch hours plus, it's a deterrent. So that's a little shredded brilliance there, which Kyle has a profusion of, and we've got Patrick. Welcome in. We're always dragging by the end of our show and hired a couple movers for a few hours to help with breakdown worth every penny. What would you say to that, Caleb?
That's terrific, especially if you need it. you know, a smaller club that maybe just doesn't have the manpower and you have to be out by a certain time, you have to look at the, you know, the problems you need solved. And it may be unfortunate that it takes money to solve that problem, but, you know, it is what it is. And we do similar things with some of the aspects of our show that we just don't have it filled, and try to find a service that will fill that. And
Yeah.
if you have to, you have to. And that works if it works for you.
And Patrick, I know that you do this job as well, so kudos to you. I know that you've wrangled the whole gem show thing. And Bob's Rocks, I did see you earlier, but didn't say hi. How you doing? And yes, exactly. Hand them a Snickers bar. If they're Betty Whiten, just hand them a Snickers bar, and they'll be all better. Hey, Kurt is also in the house. Good to see you. And we've got Kyle pitching in again. I want to try to do that. Just need a secondary device to run Square. Yeah. And it looks like we just lost Caleb there for a second. Hopefully he'll be back. But that is a thing.
Am I still
There he
here?
is. You are here. You were in the void for a moment and you are back. But yeah, having another device, if you've got like a tablet or something like that that can do the job, or even a webcam that can link to one of your devices. But I would say if you're really seriously concerned about that, then that is such a darn good idea that I might even do that in the future, given
You know,
the opportunity.
as much as I liked having like the open trays of
Oh, wait. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
it was such a small volume that it was pretty easily manageable between me and my wife. So, but if I was at like a big show like Courtside or something like that, and you see a lot of the vendors there who sell tons and tons of cabs, they have them behind Rikers, you know,
Yeah,
Riker boxes, and they'll keep them closed up until somebody wants to, like, hey, can I take a look in there? And that's a really big, because it's so easy in the blur of cabs to lose track of 10 of them if you have like hundreds of
so
them across the table, you know. And so,
yeah.
you know, there's little things like that you can do. Yeah, it's a little bit of a hassle to have to open things up for people and stuff. Yeah, but it also makes you aware of what's being gotten into and things. So there's like here and there's little things.
Yeah, and a lot of shy purchasers, such as myself, might not ask to get into a Riker box, which is basically, those of you who are wondering what the heck we're talking about. It's what you would see if somebody had mounted a butterfly in a science, a box that has like cotton padding on the back, but the top of it is a glass lid that you can see through. Is a common way to put your cabs on display without having them be grabbable at that time. Me personally, sometimes that's a deterrent for me to, like, I want to pick it up, I want to touch it. I saw somebody with a display one time that I loved so much. If you can imagine, the kind of grid boxes that you would put the old fashioned letters for newspaper
Uh
block
huh.
into, so like little sections. And they had like gallery putty, so the cab was kind of stuck into each one, so it was.
Um,
And so for one thing, somebody would have to, like, try to get it out to check it out. But also there's a missing cab.
all right.
There's always a missing cab if somebody picks something up. And I was like, "That's genius." It looks like a great, they had them on an angle so
Oh,
that, like, they would had them set up like kind of like an easel. So they were just wonderfully accessible for people to be able to look at. You were talking about your height thing, that they were up so that you could look at them, but then the vendor could always know just how many cabs. And like you were saying, you would reset your front cases with those ones
right,
that were populated from the back. So that's what they would do when they were selling through. They'd go ahead, so they were always full,
right,
but then they always knew if something was up. Yeah, and
right.
I was like, "Yeah, I see what you're doing there." But it makes it look, it made every single cab seem important. because
Right.
every single one had a little niche to be in, and super easy to put something like that together,
That's pretty cool. I like that idea.
I really, really liked that. When I was thinking, like, one of these shows, I want to join you with my stuff and or personally. And I was thinking, that would be one of the ways I would consider wanting to do it, because you gotta be able to put the stuff in their hands, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I feel
there's
that.
yeah. And so, my gosh, you have joined on for a couple of hours here and imparted an amazing amount of wisdom. Do you have some parting thoughts as far as like putting together the show, or being a vendor, or even a buyer?
Not really. I feel like we kind of covered all the main ones. I'll probably think of something as soon as I get off. But
We'll do a part
we
deux.
covered quite a bit of all like the things to cover, so I think we're good. I'm good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, that was a lot to digest. I'm gonna look forward to rewatching this myself, actually, and thinking about some of the points, and all you guys that were in the chat that offered the questions and stuff that we probably missed, that I'm sorry that we did. I'll review, and we'll address them on another time. But thank you for that. If you've got anything going on this weekend that you want to post up, especially if there's a rock show or something like that that you're a part of, you can ask the mods to help you link it, or at least just post up the title of what you're doing. And again, thank you, Caleb, so much for joining us. When do you think your next show might be?
Um, there are two other local shows in my county, or well, within reason, in my area, that I'm trying to get into. One of them, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. If anything, it would only be a partial booth like I used to do. It's looking like, and then the other one, I'm splitting a really large, like 20 by 30 booth with
Ooh.
a friend of mine, and that'll be in Napomo, California. Later this week, yeah, later this year. I forget when it's. They're both in like August, September range, so end of summer.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not on like the traveling too far circuit of things yet. So just trying to get my feet wet, see if I want to do this and stuff. And so far it seems to work pretty well. So I'll probably keep trying. But yeah, if I'm lucky, I'll do 3 shows this year, and then maybe like a couple tailgaters, which are like kind of mini shows in a way. So
Yeah, a little bit more fun. So would you say that this thing that you did was a success?
yes.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I came out in the green, which, is perfect. Um, Even after the additional expenses like buying things at the show and whatnot, I still came out in the green, which was cool. And then just everything I learned on how to do this, yeah. Overall, everything was great.
Cool. Yeah, you can leave with the payment of experience as well as the monetary stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because it's kind of like your first one by yourself is kind of like a proving zone, proving
Heck
grounds.
yeah.
See if you can do it, if it works, if
You
what you
walked
think
over the
might work
fire.
works. Yeah. So it's just really rewarding in that way.
Awesome. Well, it's inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with both putting on the show, but also being a vendor. There's just a wealth of information there. And thank you so much for sharing it so
Thanks for
articulately.
having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you
You
next
too.
time.
See you,
All right.
everybody.
Cheers. And there we go. We have the jinky mic, guys. I haven't replaced it yet, but we're getting there. And so you guys rock for all of those fantastic questions. That was really, really cool to research what we were doing. And you guys are continuing to talk about different presentation styles and that sort of thing, and suggesting possibly doing what you would do yourselves. I love it. I can't wait to read your comments. And so once again, I'm just going to like this is Hardy, my there's a duo of little trilobites that Lisa gave me. We have Laurel and Hardy. This is Hardy, and he's my little emotional support trilobite this evening. One more time, you guys, think good thoughts for our friend Lisa, and thank you for joining us for this special on. Would you like to be a vendor at a show? Would you like to direct a show at some point? And even tips on how to be a better buyer at a gem show. If you got some additional comments, definitely leave them in the comments. And I really appreciate all y'all that have been in the chat this evening. Corey Miller, Merrill, and Mr. Turtle Montana, Ma, of course, Allison, Prairie Girl, Rocks. We had the Lava Bison also running about in here. Scott Argyle, Caleb, Freeform Lapidary, the rock star tonight as a guest. We really appreciate you. Did I say Soul Adventurous? Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being here. Rob Thomas, all y'all, my mom upstairs, who definitely was the one that helped me become a first-time buyer at my first time ever gem and jewelry show at San Mateo many decades ago. Very, very inspiring. And so I appreciate all of you guys for lending your wise and hanging out with us this evening. We will do more of the theme-oriented podcasts in the future. Patricia's Creations, cheers, and thank you to you as well. So, to you and your loved ones, I hope everybody's healthy and doing well. Have a rockin' good weekend. It's Friday, so I hope that you cruise on through the rest of your weekend in the very, very best way. Steinkerns to you. I'm going to roll the credits and go hang out with my mom and some rocks. So, rock on. Alive, everybody. Are you here? Am I here? And we can't hear me. Let's start over again. you here? Am I here? And we can't hear me. Let's start over again.